my own frustrations with the pilot process as it is today. I do feel that it is outdated, and a lot of networks feel that it's outdated and sort of an old process, and it can be very inefficient. And just to give you the basic rundown, you pitch to a network, you pitch to a studio, you pitch to a network separately. They will say yes to that pitch. They will ask you to write various steps actually. Before you get to write the script, you have to write a beat sheet of it. You have to write at least 3 other steps before you get to the script. Between those, with each step, you're getting notes from both the network and the studio. Network and studio don't necessarily talk to each other. So sometimes, even though they could be the same entity.
Like a tennis match.
Yeah, and so you could find yourself, either working they could be working in accord with one another, even though they're not talking to each other, or they can be working against each other. And you as a writer have to balance both, and sometimes they're contradictory. So throughout that entire process, months go by, and as they frame the product that they want you to create in your voice, but that they really want to tailor to their specific formula, you may or may not get your show to pilot, which they may or may not take to series. So that's a lot of steps in between. And I was like, no good writer should have to go through this, right? And I know a lot of good writers, and I've read some great content, and some of this content will never see the light of day because it'll be tainted. And so the idea came to just produce pilots from people of color, because that's the most important thing too. Even when you go through this process, there aren't a lot of people of color, there aren't very women that get to go through this process and get their work seen. So we decided to create a content startup where we fund low budget pilots and from 3 different writers and
produce them for our platform, for the web, essentially, so that way we can then engage the audience, engage the viewers, and be able to use that as a tool to then help take these series to television with the writers and hopefully help them get a series deal.
And by television, I mean internet television, network television, cable television, and that's the process. That's been the process thus far.
As a part of your site, are you looking at simply promoting the ideas, taking an equity interest? How is that in terms of being set up?
Both. I mean, we work with our writers. We choose the content. We talk to our writers about taking it out. So we having the rights to be able to produce it.
So essentially, you're going to be a content incubator.
Essentially, yes. We want to be the pipeline for diverse, great content.
And you'll be. So you mentioned 3. So what you'll be focusing on 3 a year, 3 a quarter.
Actually, kind of more like 6 years. I think we talk about doing essentially 2 rounds, one in the early spring, one in the late fall, and in this case, the one for this year, obviously, it's going to be the first round, and then kind of going back and forth. So the 3 that we did over the summer were 3 single camera, half-hour comedy pilots, and what we wanted to look for next would be 3 one-hour dramas or dramedies or anything of the like. So and then from there going back to comedies and kind of going back and forth.
Switching the second genre, yes.
Yeah.
How are you in terms of these shows you're talking about doing? What is going to be your process in terms of picking talent, and what's your timeline?
Yeah. So we shot the 3 over the summer, and the difference between what we went through for the first round and what we hope to go through in the future round was that we knew that I'll tell you this, it's been about a year in the making. She came up with this idea last October when we were both in New York. So in the last span of a year, it was essentially finding content, finding the scripts through people we knew. She had actually, that whole idea came from a script she had already came across that was submitted to her by a young writer at one of our workshops. And she loved it and was like, I want to produce this, and I want to produce this as a pilot. And we knew we had to go out and find 2 others. So with that being said, we didn't want to do an open submission. We didn't want to read through 200 bad scripts to find the really good 20 or so and narrow it down from there. So we asked friends of friends, we asked agents, we asked managers, we asked producers that we knew, and just like, hey, do you have great scripts written by undiscovered talents that happen to be people of color or women? and can we take a look at that? So that's kind of where it started, and over the course of several months, I think we read about 60, which
100. No, I want to say 60, and it was 100.
we read a lot, and we narrowed it
She's
down.
trying to say 40 of them really suck. So she doesn't even want to count those.
It was a lot. But I think the key in too is that we didn't want to produce 3 pilots that happened to be the same exact thing. So what we went into is knowing, like, if we're going to do comedy, let's make it 3 drastically different comedies. So that way, you know, the greater chances of us selling these pilots would be greater, because then they can be shopped around to various outlets and not just be narrowed down to 2 or 3. And let's make it a wide diverse. And, you know, even from the directors, we had 2 directors of color. One was a male, one was a female, and we had 1 woman director who was Caucasian on the other one. So, you know, even down to some of the crew that we worked with, we really wanted to make it a full-on initiative where we really wanted to create diverse content that is produced by a diverse crew and prove that it can be done. And one of our pilots is also LGBTQ. So, you know, we're really excited about the diversity of them. And I think moving forward, it's something that we discuss a lot of, like, you know, do we partner and, like, how to find out the next round of scripts.
One of our scripts we found through Franklin Leonard's Blacklist, and that was, you know, we really tapped into various outlets. And so in the future, to find, you know, writers, we may do a submission process, a closed submission process. We're still deciding.
Still praying.
Yeah, or we may partner with someone in the future. So we're deciding.
So you shot those. Now what's the next step for you in terms of trying to get them picked up? What does that process look like? What is your timeline?
We're working behind closed doors right now with, you know, our established team to get them in front of specific eyeballs, taking meetings, and then September 23rd we're launching them online. So Tuesday. We're launching it online, and we want to get the audience support behind it. So we have a fully interactive site that's launching for the first time, and people can see the pilots. We have a Get This on TV button that people can press to get attention for the pilots, and it's really just about showing, not only shopping it and showing them the product, but showing them the audience excitement.
It sounds very similar to how when Amazon launched some of their shows. It was like, all right, launch it, we'll see how folks like it.
Yep. Well, Amazon was one of our sources of inspiration. We definitely looked at their motto and read about their motto and did some research. And, you know, one thing that I can say that we're doing that Amazon's not doing is we're not taking shows that are already created by J.J. Abrams and these great showrunners and financing and finding, you know, $1 million pilots and putting together these shows. And then on top of that, encapsulating them into only Amazon Prime members. You have to be an Amazon Prime subscriber in order to watch any of these pilots and see them. We're putting this on YouTube. We're putting this out in the world and saying, no, we're going to let the world watch these and tell us that this is great content. We're not going to make people, it's not a gimmick, we're not going to make you sign for a subscription. And we're also not pulling people who have already created shows in the television industry, who have already been successful filmmakers, and giving them an opportunity, another platform to make their work. We're actually saying we want to create a platform that's producing content by people who, again, what we do with our channel, might not be able to, and give them this opportunity.
And we want to create the next showrunners. Even now, trying to find a showrunner for a television series that's of color or a woman is nearly impossible, and that's just a damn shame. Even the Hollywood Reporter just released a spread of there are 50 showrunners and television creators over the years.
Emmy winners.
Emmy winners. And they were all showrunners and content creators, and all 49 were white men, and then there was 1 white woman in the center. And it was like, yes, we did it. We did it, guys.
Not liberal Hollywood.
So
not the progressives in Hollywood.
We want to change that.
And I'll also add too, you know, we're excited to be here at Urban World because we will be premiering our 3 pilots here. So if any of you guys are attending the festival, which I hope you all are, you can catch 1 pilot on Friday, 2 of them on Saturday. They're attached to 3 of the shorts programs, and come check them out. Come see them before we launch on Tuesday and help us spread the word and tell everyone how great they are.
And one of our writers is here. You can get the skinny from her. Brittany Nichols, are you here? Yes, so you're like, woo! Oh, that's right there, yeah!
You stand the hell up. That's that way you gonna do nothing. There you go.
So if you want the inside skin, if you think about submitting, talk to her. She'll be like, don't do it.
All right, second round of questions. Yes.
I'm not clear because you said that you wanted a closed submission process, but what are those details out yet?
No, we're literally still figuring. That was a way to say we don't know. We're trying to figure it out. We don't necessarily want it to be. We don't want it to be completely open to the public. So we're just trying to figure it out.
So essentially, what you're talking about doing is you are taking advantage of another filtering process.
Mm-hmm.
So as opposed to just anything coming through, it's already going through another filtering process. Once it goes through that filtering process, you're tapping into those folks because they essentially went through all the stuff you don't want to go through, and then you're getting a much smaller set of things.
In a way, yes.
In a way, yes.
Got it.
Well, where do we find out about that?
Colorcreative.tv, it'll all be there
It'll all
on
be on
September
the
26th.
website. Social media.
Well, by the time we'll figure it out in a week.
Question right next to you.
Sounds like a great idea. How did you guys finance the pilot?
Sponsors. One of our pilots was sponsored by GM.
Fish fries.
Yeah, fish fries. With personal money, like believed in this project. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Going forward, we toggled with the idea of trying to get investors, and then we were advised against not doing that. We were advised against doing that because people would have to say, just complicated lawyers speak or all of that. We said no, so I'm not gonna go that route. Sponsors have been difficult just because the timeline just didn't really fit ours.
Yeah, that, and at the end of the day, when it comes to sponsorship, a lot of them want to see it first. So that was a lot of the feedback we got was, come back to us once you've done it.
And now that we have, the response has been amazing.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get off of that. I'm going to go to a question in a second. I don't want to get off of that because, again, that goes to the entrepreneurial side of what you have to deal with. And there are decisions that you have to make. And somebody might be dangling a check in front of you, and you have to have the willingness, the intestinal fortitude to say no if you're clear on what your vision is.
Absolutely. And we knew, when it came to investment and then taking a stake into the company or taking a stake into what we were doing, we knew that we were too early of a company and too early in what we wanted to do to take advantage of that. We just didn't want to get ourselves blindsided into a deal, into something that we might have regretted later when it comes down to growing this and making it something bigger than itself.
Or from a voice that didn't necessarily fit, who's, a voice of a person whose work didn't necessarily fit the goals that we were trying to meet.
Oh no, man, I've had investors, I've had a lot of investors say, projects that I worked on, that every check is not a good check.
Yeah.
And it's understanding that. Next question, it's right here.
Yes, what is your audition process for your actors?
We're very much open calls.
Thank you very much for that question.
Yeah. Are you referring to maybe Color Creative or maybe the other series that we do? Or all of it?
He's looking for any of them.
Any of it. Well, for Color Creative specifically, I'll mention we hired 2 really great casting directors who took care of the bulk of that. And they cast for all 3 of our pilots, and they did the usuals and posted on backstage or posted on the breakdowns and what have you, and reach out to managers. But a lot of for our web content. We actually, in early spring, we had 2 days of open auditions, so that way we can just increase our Rolodex of great actors, because what ended up happening, what we kept doing for a lot of our sketches, we ended up is just like, people would reach out and say, we want to be a part, and then we had this idea of like, why don't we do open auditions, so that way, then we then had a huge Excel sheet of a bunch of different people that we could then go to, and headshots we can pull that want to be a part of what we're doing, so we made it that much easier.
Let's roll the trailers.
Here are trailers for 3 of our pilots.
Yes.